Hello YouTube land. Today we're going to take a look at Canon's new 6D and compare it to Canon's other two full-frame semi-professional cameras, the 5D2 and the 5D3. Until recently, really, the 5D2 was the only full-frame semi-professional camera that Canon did. Now, with the 5D3 out and the 6D, you've got a much wider range. So we'll have a closer look at each one of these cameras and decide which one's right for you. Let's take a look. Let's start by taking a look at the look and feel, starting with the 5D2, which has been a bit of a workhorse for a few years now, and it's still a great camera and still available at an even more reasonable price, under $2,000 now. The 5D2 features the old style buttons with the power button down the bottom here, the old arrangement of buttons up the side, no lock on here. And on the side it had the mic, HDMI, USB and no headphone jack. The 5D3 improved on this in a number of ways. We added a headphone jack on here for video recording so you can monitor what you're recording. The power button moved up the top here, which I like. We put a lock on the mode button. We still have the 3 custom modes. Around the side they rearranged the buttons again. They added the new rubber to the side, which I much prefer. This is softer rubber. It makes holding the camera a lot easier. It's perfect size for my hand. It's a little larger, and if you compare it with the 6D, which is a lot smaller, it's about the size of a 60D. You can see, if you look, if I try and hold it right here, you can see the 6D grip is just a little bit smaller, but it does include this nice soft rubber that the 5D3 had. What I like about the 6D is that they've moved a lot of the buttons over to the right hand side here, which makes it a camera that can be used one-handed. What I mean by that is you can hold the camera and review photos that you've taken with one hand without having to get this hand involved. This hand can be holding your ice cream or whatever. The layout and buttons are similar to a lot of the modern Canon cameras. The screen on the top here is smaller for the 60D than the two 5Ds, but still it's a nice easy camera to use. Around this side, we've got the card slots. Starting with the 5D2 again. The 5D2 had the CF card, which was common for professional cameras. The 5D3 improved on this with the CS card and the SD card that could be used separately or together to record photos. And now the 6D, which has dropped back to just SD card. And now I know that some people think that this is going to spell the end of the world, but really an SD card, a good high capacity, high speed SD card, is pretty much as good as a CF card, and so I really don't see this being a big problem or differentiator between these 3 cameras. Around the front, the layout is similar. Nothing much different with the front of the cameras except for the change of the depth of focus button. The 5D3 has it down here on the right, whereas the 5D2 had it on the left. The 6D also down here on the right. Pretty much from a look and feel point of view, I like all 3 cameras. What I like about the 6D is a reduction in weight. You can always like a little bit less weight, but at the same time it's a little plasticier. Certainly the buttons are a little less professional. The buttons feel more like a 60D, and the 6D is also missing the joystick button that we enjoy on the two 5Ds. The joystick button, useful for setting your autofocus points, scrolling around menu items, and of course through your pictures. So disappointed to see no joystick button on the 6D, but still 6D, a nice button layout, a nice weight and nice feel. The screens on all 3 of these cameras are great screens. The 5D3 improved on the 5D2 by having the screen that's mounted right out to the edge, and so it's a little clearer and a little sharper, and it's a little larger. It's a 3.2 inch with slightly more pixels on it. The screen on the 6D has the same number of pixels as on the 5D2, but the screen's a little smaller. It's a 3-inch screen, and it's set a little bit back in the glass, and it's plastic, not actual glass, but I don't think that's going to be a problem for most people. Lovely screens on all three cameras. Now onto some of the more important stuff, namely the focusing systems. The focusing is probably what sets the 5D3 apart from the other two cameras more than anything. The 5D2 had a 9 autofocus points with one cross type in the middle, and I've used the 5D2 for many years, and that's been perfectly sufficient for me. But a lot of people love the new 61 point autofocus in the 5D3. It also has, I think, 41 cross types. It certainly means that you have a lot more choice when it comes to where you're going to focus your picture, and this makes this camera much more preferable for the professionals. The 6D focusing system is very similar to the 5D2. 11 focus points with one cross type in the middle. The only difference is that it has superior metering, particularly at night. This camera, I've found, focuses far more accurately at night than the 5D2. Still not quite as good as the 5D3, but if you, like myself, do most of your focusing with the center point focusing system on the 6D is still perfectly adequate, and well, when I say adequate, probably excellent still. Next up is shutter speed, another area that differentiates these three cameras, with the 5D3 leading the pack by a considerable margin. We'll start with the 5D2. The 5D2 had a maximum shutter speed of just under 4 frames per second. It was rated at 3.9. If you want to hear what that sounds like, still perfectly respectable and usable, but when compared with the 5D3, which improved on this by going up to 6 frames per second. Take the photo, you stupid thing. There we go. Considerably faster, as you can hear. And now the 6D, which is rated at 4.5, so a little faster than the 5D2, and a little quieter too. What the 5D3 and the 6D both have in common as well is they've added the silent mode. The silent mode allows you to have a single shot or multiple shots and a quieter shutter release. If you want to hear the difference with the 6D, and if I go back to regular mode, so useful for wildlife photographers and perverts alike, and that features on the 5D3 as well. So the regular shooting, and if I move it to the silent mode, considerable reduction in sound. So once again, 3.9, 4.5, and the fastest one at 6 frames per second. So if sports shooting or action shooting is part of your remit, certainly the 5D3 with its faster frame rate is going to be useful to you. And onto day-to-day usage and the viewfinders. If we take a look at the, if we take a look through the viewfinder, and unfortunately I can't show you this. The 5D2 had a 98% viewfinder, the 5D3 100%, and the 6D a 97%. What does this mean? Not much really. It's something that camera geeks like to talk about, but really anything above 95 is all you really need. It is nice to have the 100% on the 5D3, so it shows completely accurately what you're going to be shooting, but really they're all bright, clear viewfinders. My preference being the 6D and the 5D3, obviously. They're just a little bit more modern, show a little bit more information on their screens. But it's not really a differentiator between these cameras. The viewfinder is excellent on all of them. As for the sensitivity of the sensors, both the 6D and the 5D3 have the more modern Series 5 processor in them, and the new sensors which allow much higher ISO. Whether or not this is useful is up for debate. The old 5D2 could go up to, from memory, 12,800, whereas both the newer cameras can go up to 102,000 ISO. You know, above 6400 is, everything starts getting a little blotchy on any of these cameras. However, the Series 5 processor in the newer cameras does do a better job of noise reduction, and so if you are going to be shooting in areas of low light where you need those very, very high ISOs, certainly you're going to be better off with either the 6D or the 5D3 because of the better processor and the more modern sensor. So next up, are they any good at making movies? Well, making movies with a DSLR is a bit of a double-edged sword in that they do make great movies because you can take advantage of the wonderful lenses you can get with these, but at the same time they do not autofocus on a DSLR. So it's certain types of movies you can make with these cameras, and I love making movies with DSLRs, but it has to be mixed in with a regular camera as well that can autofocus. As for the movie making features, they're all similar. The only difference being that the 5D3 is probably the best in that it has a headphone jack, which is useful when making movies. But otherwise, the movie making features are much the same between the three. It's not a differentiator between these three cameras. As for the sensor, obviously all three are full frame, and they're all very similar. The 5D3 leads the pack with its 22 megapixel, the 5D2 with its 21, and the 6D with its 20 megapixel. Frankly, this is not a differentiator between these cameras. 20 megapixels or 22 megapixels, really, you can't tell the difference. It's plenty of megapixels to crop any photo. It's more than anyone will ever need. Now the 6D does have something that neither of the 5Ds have, and that is built-in Wi-Fi. Built-in Wi-Fi is probably most useful for sending photos directly to a computer or a PDA, but it can also be used in conjunction with Canon's utility for phones to control the camera. Would anyone actually ever use this feature? I don't know. It's kind of a neat feature to show off to your friends, but its usefulness is questionable maybe if you're using remote shooting or something like that. But still, a neat little feature to have, and something that is only available on the 5D3 if you get the external Wi-Fi module. So, which of these fantastic cameras are right for you? Well, that really comes down to what you're going to be using them for and how deep are your pockets. You know, I've had a 5D2 for years now, and it is a magnificent camera, and there's nothing wrong with it. The 6D muddies the water a little in that, for my money, I'd rather pay a few $100s extra and get the features that the 6D has, particularly the better processor, and the different layout and the lighter weight than having a 5D2. So if I was buying a camera today and had to pick between a 5D2 and a 6D, I'd certainly go for the 6D. It's a little better value for money. It's a little more modern, has a few extra features. However, the 5D3 is definitely the top of the line here, and certainly for a lot of people, the extra focus points, the extra speed and frames per second make all the difference, and that would be the camera they'd go for. But I'd like to remind everybody that the camera body you choose makes such a small difference to the quality of your photos. A good photographer can take an amazing photo with a box brownie, and a poor photographer can take nothing but crappy photos with the very best equipment. So once again, I recommend wherever you can to buy a lens, a good lens, over spending money on the body. Because at the end of the day, a good photo comes down to, first of all, the photographer, second, the lens, and a distant third, the body. So don't be one of those idiots that has the most expensive body and a really crappy lens. You're not going to be getting great photos out of that. Spend the money on the lenses first and then the bodies. If you can afford the 5D3, it's certainly worth the money, but the 6D and the 5D2 are still excellent cameras. Nothing wrong with the middle. So I hope this has been helpful. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.